that loud enough? Welcome to Rotary Club of Bearden. If you will, please silence all electronic devices. And Haynes has got our song and pledge today.
I'm not ready yet. I can't button my coat.
Well, I had to get a bigger coat today.
Let's say God bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, fly with flow. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Where's the flag?
Right over here, buddy. Keep moving.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Haynes. We keep moving the flag, just keep you on your toes. Ashley has our invocation today.
Let's pray. Father, we just come before you with thankful hearts for all the blessings that you just have bestowed upon us, Lord. I'm just thankful for these group, this group of men and women who are servant-hearted, Lord, and follow your command to think of others above themselves. Lord, I pray that as we go into the holiday season with Christmas, and Lord, that we focus on you and your command to love others. And Lord, that we will be, our hearts and minds will be open to recognize those who might be in need, who may be hurting emotionally or have physical needs, that we might be able to help them. Lord, we won't focus so much on ourselves, but we'll focus on others. Lord, once again, I just pray for this group and our mission, where we go, and that what we do will be pleasing to you, and you will approve of our mission and our projects. And Father, also be mindful of going into this season, even though it's a joyous time, Lord, it also can be a time of sadness for others who may have lost loved ones and or who are alone. And I just pray that they'll seek your light and your hope that you give us in this time. And Lord, lastly, I just thank you for food and shelter and abundance that we have in this country. Lord, I just lift up our leaders and our servicemen who serve us on a daily basis. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ashley. I think this is the first time that I've ever been aware of, and certainly Michael said the same thing. We have no guests and visitors today. Gary Eastman was supposed to announce the guests and visitors, and he's not here, you know. He's probably out trying to drag in some support on the street, so if he shows up later with some, we'll give him a chance to announce. David Alley has a Huber today.
Man, I tell you what.
Tough crowd.
I thought you were on the full-time blacklist.
Every once in a while, they let me back up here, Charlie. Speaking of, I talked to my wife last night, and she said, I said, I'm telling the joke today. She said, you got to keep it correct and clean. And I said, well, you mean I can't tell them about the hot dog party? She said, no. What about the Indian Jews and the Polacks at Walmart? Absolutely not. What about the blonde and the redneck and the used car salesman? No. So, folks, I feel sort of like Elizabeth Taylor when she got married for the 8th time. When she turned to her husband and said, I know what to do. This is on her wedding night. I know what to do and how to do it. I'm just going to try and make it interesting. So, here we go.
Keep it clean.
I'm going to keep it clean. Charlie, this one, I've got one. I've got a little golf. I've got a newsflash, Alabama graduate, and little Irish humor. So, 3 minutes. I know. Golf.
Got you on the clock.
Golf. Winston Churchill said it's a game with equipment ill-designed for its purpose. Alabama graduated veterinarian, and he said he didn't know if he wanted to be a veterinarian or a taxidermist, so he put out his sign and said, one way or another, you're going to get your dog back. And the last one, a drunk staggers into a Catholic church, enters a confessional booth, sits down, doesn't say a thing. Priest coughs a few times to get his attention, but the drunk continues to sit there and doesn't say anything. Finally, the priest pounds 3 times on the wall. The drunk mumbles, "Ain't no use knocking, there's no paper over here either." And with that, Charlie, you're up here next week.
Well, that's tough to follow. Dick couldn't make it today, but Gary, are you or Amanda going to update us on Pine Gap?
Okay, we're going to Pine Gap today with myself, Rosamar, Janice Mitchell, and McCall. We have, I'm going to pass this sheet around, we have an opening on January 8th and an opening on January 15th that we need to fill. So I'm going to start this sheet around. Start here. And also, while I'm up here, I would like to thank everybody that came out Saturday to ring the bell for Salvation Army. It goes for a great need, and that's really appreciate the time and effort that you all put into that, and especially appreciate the people that stepped forward when they had people that had to cancel their slot and stepped forward and took those slots. So I thank everybody.
Thank you, and thanks. Can we get a round of applause for Gary? He does this every year. Thank you, Gary. Janice, can you give us an update on mobile meals, please?
Yes, Ray Fisher delivered mobile meals today, and next week Jim Coffin is going to be delivering for us, and then we have 2 weeks off, and we don't start again until the second weekend in January.
Okay, thank you very much, Janice. Speaking of two weeks off, we've also, the meetings, we on Christmas Day, obviously, and New Year's Day, or we're not holding meetings, so if anybody shows up, you're going to be probably the only one here. So next week we have a meeting, though, so we've got a real important meeting for next week. With that, I guess we're ready to go through and introduce our speaker today. Really pleased with our speaker. Phil?
Rebekah's kind of like a Baptist church. They're all Baptist. Our speaker today is one of our own. She not only came to Knoxville from Connecticut and done very well in business to start with, and then she also has meant a lot to this club, Rebekah, so we appreciate that. She is a master in social work. That was what her degree was at Arizona State University. She is what we call an MSW, is the Director of Education and Community Relations for Choices in Senior Care. In this role, she provides staff and community education regarding dementia and dementia care standards, as well as ongoing consultation and support for Choices in Senior Care clients. She joined the Choices in Senior Care team in October of 2014. As I mentioned, she came from Connecticut. She did, as I mentioned earlier, got her degree from Arizona State University. And she has devoted her career to the mission of improving quality of life for individuals with dementia and supporting their caregivers. She has 12 years experience in this, and she lists as one of her major accomplishments, and the one that she is most proud of, was developing first ever support groups for caregivers impacted by frontotemporal, is that right? dementia in the states of Arizona and Connecticut. Her husband's name is Matt, and he works in recruiting at UT. And she has an English bulldog by the name of what, Richard? Bettis. Now, is that Richard? Is that Richard or Jerome?
It was named after me.
Before we met.
I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hey everybody. How many of you are getting older?
I'm faster than others.
Anyone getting younger? Awesome. Tell us your secrets. So we're all getting older, so even if you think, well, I'm not there yet, you will be, and you probably have parents or friends or loved ones who may be facing some of these challenges. So what I want to do in a short amount of time, because I can certainly get on a soapbox and go on, and Bo said he almost didn't come today because I was talking, which kind of hurt my feelings, but you can beat him up afterward. But I'm going to try to keep this moving. So I'm going to try to condense a lot of information that I'd love to share with folks into a short amount of time. So first, the boomer boom. We're all getting older. Now there are currently about 5 million Americans over the age of 85. And if you don't know, 85 and older is actually our fastest growing segment of the population. So we are an aging culture, and you see a lot in the newspaper, in the news, about the graying of America. Just some quick statistics. We have about 34 million adults providing care for someone over the age of 50. And that unpaid economic value of unpaid caregiving, so those of us that are providing some sort of care for a family member or friend over the age of 50, if we were to put a dollar value on that, it would be over $470 billion. Let me ask you a quick question. How many of you have been involved in care for someone else? Okay, so I'm going to be preaching to the choir a little bit here today. When you were caring for that person, did you have a guidebook that said on December 11th, here's the way to respond to these crises? No? And so what did you do?
Wing it.
Awesome. You just winged it, right? I sat with a woman this morning who came to my office from a very small rural town in Tennessee, and she said, I have just kind of been spinning my wheels trying to do the best I could for my husband, and I need some help, because this is where we find ourselves. When we are tossed into this caregiving situation, typically we don't plan for it, we're not prepared for it, it finds us, right? We don't often choose, in 2015 I'm going to be a caregiver, that finds us most often. And in the same way that some of us hire outside experts, and let me just poll you again, how many of you use a financial planner for your finances? Okay, why do you do that? Why do you use a financial planner?
Because I can't add.
I love this group, because you can't add, okay. Definitely my favorite answer. Because a lot of you, because you didn't know where to go, because they had the resources. And so I'll talk a little bit about what my company does and how we kind of serve in that same capacity for healthcare, the way that a financial planner serves for someone's finances. Let me ask you this. When you found yourself in a situation where you were providing care or assistance to someone, how many of you found out that just taking over and doing it for them does not work? Did anyone try that? How did it work? As Dr. Phil says, how's it working for you? Did it work? Sometimes there gets to be a point, particularly with illnesses like dementia, where we do have to step in and assist with decision making. As someone's cognitive changes continue to decline, their abilities decline, we have to step in and make decisions. But it's usually best if we can step in at a place where we can be their advocate and their partner, and that works better. Since 2003, when I started working with seniors, I have always seen this trend. Okay, this is 100% happens every year. November, December, January, we see a lot of people reaching out for help. This is the time when families get together and they haven't seen mom or dad or sister or brother in a year, and suddenly they get with their family and they say, wow, I had no idea it was this bad. And so they start reaching out for help. And so I wanted to include just a couple of things that we typically recommend to be aware of. Driving issues, if you start to see a loved one isolating and withdrawing from social engagement, if you start noticing weight loss, personal care changes, someone that used to always be very meticulous with their self-care, who is not taking care of themselves, maybe they're not bathing, or you see them in the same clothes and dirty clothes repeatedly. If you start noticing memory concerns, and I could do a whole talk on that. I almost did that, but there's no way I could have put that into 20 minutes. One of the most common requests that I get for presentations is normal aging versus dementia, but I wasn't going to be here to diagnose everyone, so how many of you have ever gone to the kitchen and you don't remember why you went there? I have bad news. No, I say if you go to the kitchen and you don't remember why you went there, you're normal. If you go to the kitchen and you don't recognize that it's your kitchen, that may be more problematic. Another way to say that is also folks with Alzheimer's, they typically forget, they've forgotten, and they couldn't care less 5 minutes later. So those of you that say, oh, I can't remember that word, or I see that person at the grocery store and I can't remember their name, those things are all normal, right? But we all do that nice Southern Belle thing and we say, hey honey, it's so good to see you, how's your family? Right? But these are some things that we might want to look for when we're working with someone that we start to notice these changes. It might be time to reach out for some help. How about this? I don't want to think about it. That won't happen to us. Does that work? I was when I was in Arizona, I worked with a hospice care company, and I met with this couple. They were both 92 years old, and we were going to talk about advanced care planning. And I said, "Do you have a living will?" And they both looked at me and they said, "No, that's not really something that we like to talk about." My thought was, you're 92. At what point are we going to broach this subject? When is that safe age? Are we at 97 going to start thinking about it? So we have to pre-plan. None of us make our best decisions in an emergency, right? Or maybe some people do, but most people that I run into don't. And so it's important to understand our options, to know how to best use the resources that are out there, and that will decrease our chances of getting overwhelmed. I love this picture. These are the options in senior care. Beautiful. Clear as mud, right? So now you find yourself in a caregiving situation. You say, well, what's available? Well, these are the things that are available. This is the senior living spectrum. I found this on a website and I just loved it because I thought, well, I know senior care, and so it does actually make sense to me, and it's a beautiful little graph in terms of senior care, but a loved one who's aging and looks at this is going to be really overwhelmed and confused, and when they see options that might sound good for them, they may make the wrong decisions and then have to remake decisions. So a lot of times seniors may move into facilities that are assisted living, and what we're seeing in our industry is that folks who used to be in assisted living are now in independent living communities. People who used to be in nursing homes are now in assisted living. So in each of those care options, the acuity of care is actually much higher than it used to be because people are delaying moving out of their home a lot longer. So it's an evolving issue. Being uninformed about our diagnosis, does that work or not work?
Not working.
Anyone have an example of kind of just putting your head in the sand and thinking, well, it'll be okay, until it pops up and it isn't? This is the part where you could engage with me a little bit. No? Okay. Well, I'll tell you that a lot of times what we see is folks with dementia, and this is kind of my wheelhouse. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. You know, if we look at statistics, 1 out of 8 people over the age of 65 will have Alzheimer's disease. Over the age of 85, almost 50%, it's 47% right now, 47% of people over the age of 85 will have Alzheimer's disease. And one of the most common questions that we get asked is, what is the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia? So I always like to address that. And just generally speaking, dementia is describing changes in the brain. And Alzheimer's disease is one type of dementia. How many of you have had a loved one with Alzheimer's disease? Has anyone had a loved one with a diagnosis of another form of dementia, like frontotemporal dementia, or Lewy body dementia, Creutzfeldt-Jakob, anything like that? I see one hand only. Two. Okay. But the most common form, if we look at this heading of dementia and think about in terms of cancer as a general term, and if the doctor said you have cancer, you would say, well, what type of cancer is it? In the same way, when I hear someone say, well, my loved one has a diagnosis of dementia, I want to know, well, what type of dementia is it? Because that's going to help us know what to prepare for moving forward. The most common form, there are over 70 different types of dementia, but the most common form is Alzheimer's disease. And in that type of dementia, what is the first symptom that we typically see in Alzheimer's disease? Memory loss, right? Is it usually short-term memory or long-term memory? Short-term. So that short-term memory, that part of the brain that controls my short-term, that when you meet someone you remember their name, that you are hopefully retaining some of the information that I'm providing today, that's going into the hippocampus. And the hippocampus also controls a couple of other things that are interesting, and you may have seen this in your loved one. For those of you that have had a loved one with Alzheimer's disease, it also affects what we call wayfinding. Wayfinding, meaning that if I went to a new place and I had never been there, say I went to your house and we're meeting in the living room and then you blindfolded me and asked me to find the door again, I could probably find the door. Just my ability to find my way back out of that situation. The second part of that that's really interesting, or the third piece that the hippocampus controls, not only our short-term memory, but also that wayfinding and putting things in chronological order. And this is important, and I want to share this because I see this happen a lot with families. If I were to ask you to give me your history, you would probably start with, well, I was born here, then I went to school here, I graduated high school, then I went to college, then I started my career, I got married, I had kids, whatever that might be. And you would probably put it in chronological order. And when the hippocampus starts to be damaged, it's like I take scissors to that timeline and start to cut it off. So now, those parts of my history start to get confused. And so now I may think I'm 40 years old and I need to pick up the kids from school. And I'm back in a different time and place in my history. Or I start to combine stories, and I'll give you an example. When I was a little girl, I've always been kind of type A, high strung. And when I was little, stop laughing, I had my Easter basket. I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and I had my Easter basket, and I spilled my Easter basket. My Easter eggs went everywhere, and I cried because it was not perfect, you know, and how could I do that? And so I was very upset about it, and all the adults around us started laughing and thought it was hilarious. Fast forward 20 years, I was visiting my grandmother, and she had Alzheimer's disease. And we were having some pancakes with syrup, and I spilled the syrup. I guess I'm clumsy. Both of these involved me spilling something. So I spilled the syrup, and she was kind of uptight, generally, and so I thought she was going to be upset. Well, she just started laughing. And I think my mom heard the following story probably every day until she died, about 20 times, until my grandmother died. She would tell my mom, remember when little Becky spilled her Easter eggs in the syrup? And we laughed and laughed. And so she had 2 stories that she overlapped. And so, you know, it's kind of interesting because sometimes families say to us, well, she makes up these crazy stories. And it kind of makes sense if you understand that part of the brain being impacted. And also that if I don't know a missing piece is missing there, I'm going to fill it in with what I think makes sense. And when I fill it in, then my family starts to say, she's making up crazy stories, but really it's part of the disease. So we see all of these parts of the brain, and I just want to show you these pictures of the brain. Here on the left-hand side, they're pictures of the brain as if you cut the brain here through the middle and you're looking at it from the front. And these little holes down here, that's where the hippocampus is. And so in the advanced stages of dementia, it almost looks like, as I said, holes in the brain where the hippocampus is. So when we have someone ask us the same question 100 times or tell us the same story 20 times in a row, this is why that's happening, because for them, they have no short-term memory for that event. And so when they say, what time are we having lunch? 12 o'clock. What time are we having lunch? 12 o'clock. kind of hungry. What time did you say we're having lunch? And you want to say 12 o'clock. I've told you 100 times. And it's not that they can't hear us, it's just that they can't store that information. So I heard one neurologist say that by the time we see a symptom in someone, whether it's the memory loss, their language abilities, their insight and judgment, their thinking abilities, by the time we see that change in someone, that about half of the brain cells in that part of the brain have already died. So they're doing the best they can. We're the ones that have to change. And so that's why a lot of what I do is go out and train and educate professional caregivers and family caregivers in understanding why these things in the brain happen. We think so much about memory, but all of these other areas of the brain are also impacted. I was counseling with a family in Maryville Tuesday, and the daughter said that her mother, who has Alzheimer's disease, becomes combative with her father when he tries to clean her up. She's in an adult brief at this point. She's incontinent of bowel and bladder, and so when he tries to clean her up, she becomes very combative and hits him. And as she was telling me more about her mom, she later came to say that her mom was always asking about the baby. Where's the baby? Where's the baby? And so the daughter was very intuitive, and rather than trying to argue, there aren't any babies, we're 40 now, Mom, she actually went and bought her mom a little baby, and Mom carries around the baby, she feeds the baby, she sings to the baby, she loves this baby, and it's a real comfort for her mom. And so when she said that, I thought, you know what, I bet your mom thinks she's a lot younger than she is. She said, oh yeah, actually one time we asked her and she said she was 40 something, and then another time we asked her how old she said she was 10. I said, okay, great, put your mom now, put yourself in your mom's shoes. She thinks she's 10 years old, and your 80-year-old dad is reaching in to change her brief. You think you understand now while she's trying to hit him? This dirty old guy's trying to reach into that place that I've been told since I was this big, no one touches me there without my permission, right? And so she's like, wow, I never really thought about it that way. So really just understanding all of these changes in the brain help us be more patient and maybe be able to better meet the needs of folks with dementia. Again, if you haven't known someone with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, you probably will at some point. Another does it work or not, attempting to go it alone without reaching out for help. Have you ever known someone who was providing care for another person and the caregiver died before the person that they were providing care for? Raise your hand if you've seen that happen. Yeah, it happens a lot. That caregiver burden and burnout is a real issue. And so really important that we're always educating families on what is available. Is anyone familiar with an adult day program or that concept or that philosophy? Who can tell us what that is?
I can't tell you.
Yeah.
For the caregivers or for the family, for example, at Concord United Methodist Church, they have cave daycare, or adult day care.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a programmed day for adults. It's just like, instead of dropping off at preschool, you're dropping off at adult daycare.
Yeah. So very similar to the model that we see with children, is a place for a caregiver to take their senior for stimulation and socialization while the caregiver either gets a break or goes to work or whatever they might need. It's a great model. Non-medical home care, this is where we see companion cares, or we hear people call it different things, sitter services, or where you can hire someone. It's typically $18 to $22 an hour for a non-professional caregiver. It's not a nurse. It's very often not a certified nursing assistant. It's just a trained caregiver to come in and provide some oversight and supervision and some personal care assistance for folks. There's also home health and hospice. I worked in hospice care for 5 years in Arizona, and that is that end-of-life benefit. I know most of you are probably familiar with that. And then I want to talk about aging life care professionals, because that's what my company does here in Knoxville. So we are a part of a national organization. It used to be called National Geriatric Care Managers, but they rebranded last year, understanding that people don't really like the geriatric term, I think. And so now it's the association is Aging Life Care Association. So what we do is we partner with families, individuals and families, to help guide them through the senior care process, navigate what decisions have to be made. I say that we really focus on three main areas. Being a professional advisor for folks, again, just like you would hire a professional advisor for your finances, what we can do on that end would be with healthcare. Also knowing what resources are available and what might be appropriate for someone. And the third piece of that is being a healthcare advocate. So a lot of our clients have family members who are out of town or are here but very busy and unable to be involved to the level that they want to. So people will hire us to serve as that boots on the ground surrogate sibling or daughter for individuals who have chronic healthcare issues. We're available 24/7 to jump in, and I got to see that firsthand a few weeks ago when I was on call and got to help a woman in the emergency room from 9 p.m. till 2 a.m., a woman who has some mental health issues and also some dementia, who otherwise lives in an assisted living that is wonderful and provides her care, but once she went to the emergency room, their services stopped at the door, and so our client was at the emergency room by herself. Or shall I say, would have been, actually beat her to the emergency room because I live closer to the hospital than her facility. So when they called me and said she's going to the ER, I actually got there before she did. So for her, at the end of that night, to look at me and say, I can't imagine, even with her dementia, she said, I can't imagine what this would have been like had you not been here with me, was really powerful. Very confusing. If any of you have been in the hospital or visited someone recently, you probably know it wasn't a spa-like experience. It's very stressful, very overwhelming, and when you add mental health and dementia to that, it's even worse. So that is a little bit about our company. Just briefly, we were started 6 years ago by a brilliant woman named Mary Wegman, and she saw the need for care management here in the Knoxville area. For so many folks who have family members out of town, they can't be that boots on the ground support for them. So she started our company 6 years ago, and then about a year in, she was actually contacted by Humana. And Humana said, we'd like to look at offering care management by nurses in folks' homes who are high utilizers of the medical system. They end up in the ER a lot. And what they found was it cost them less money to pay our nurses to go visit these folks than it did to have these people end up in the hospital repeatedly. So now we do private care management where folks pay us privately, and we also serve as Humana care managers. So just a little bit about our company and how we help folks, and that is all. And I kept it under the 20 minutes, which I will tell you is a record.
You sure did. You mind a few questions? Do we have some questions?
Yes.
Today at 4 o'clock I get to go to an assisted living facility for my wife's mom. We're going to do the Christmas party thing. What percentage of senior care is covered by any kind of insurance?
Traditional insurance?
Yeah.
None.
That's what I figured.
None. Only long-term care insurance.
Okay.
If someone had long-term care insurance, that might have a benefit for assisted or at-home care. But
I asked that because you mentioned Humana. You know, I have Humana insurance, and I was surprised to see that. I understand why they're sending you there, because emergency room charges are so heinous.
Right.
I just wondered if that's actually something they're doing to prevent them.
it's cost savings for them. Yeah, but it's a big misconception. I can't tell you how many times folks call us and say, you know, what does my insurance cover? And I'm sorry, it doesn't cover anything. That's not part of insurance. And also we get confused with the 10 Care Choices program a lot, which is a Medicaid benefit. But we're all private pay. Yes?
Well, just real quick, I can tell you the experience of my 93-year-old mom. Even though a doctor prescribed round-the-clock care, even Medicare doesn't pick that up. It does for a very short period of time, and then it's out.
Yeah. Right. No, it's not paid for. Yes.
Any direction or resources on helping those that need it that don't think they need it?
Ooh, that's a hard one, and I can talk with you separately if you'd like, but most people don't say, hi, son, daughter, please step in and help me. I really need your help right now. You know, sometimes family meetings work, sometimes bargaining, let's make a deal, let's try this for a short time and reassess.
Fast forward.
You've done that
They're
already?
doing that, fast forward, what's next?
It depends on the intricacies of your situation. Let's talk afterwards.
Rebekah, thank you so much. Here's a paperweight for your office.
Thank you.
And if they don't pay attention to it, you can throw it at somebody.
Okay, good idea.
And here's a book, obviously we donate to Pod Gap. Sign it.
Thank you.
Send it on your behalf.
All right.
I can't remember what the program was about. That was really good. Gary's got family and Rotary. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, I assume y'all have noticed that this table sitting in front of us is empty. And who always sits at that table? The Elys. Dottie is ill, and therefore that's why they're not here. So if you would all please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Okay, Pond Gap Elementary School, this is in the news this week. Pond Gap Elementary School was featured in an article on access to healthy foods. I don't know how many of y'all know that they have their own garden over there that they work. It's on the 6,800 square foot garden that also includes a fruit orchard. Every child in school sees the garden. They also work in it and they learn in it. The garden is used and worked by students and volunteers year-round as an edible classroom. Part of the produce is used in the school cafeteria. Some is sold to the school system and the revenue is reinvested in the edible classroom. And the balance of the produce goes out to the Pond Gap community where there's a need. And also in the news was Rosa Gayla Marr. Gayla's her new nickname. She was in the news again attending the College of Social Work Homecoming Gala, as well as raising funds for its scholarship fund. The gala was an opportunity to honor individuals and agencies that work in the community. And also in the news was Rosa Gayla Marr, the second time. In the, she was recognized in the Rotary News section of the Shopper News, representing our club on a trip to Mexico, experiencing firsthand the work that is possible through our club contributions to the Heart to Heart program. So that's a great program. Also, Mark Warwick, some of you know Mark, he was a former member of our club. He asked me to wish all of you a Merry Christmas. And birthdays. On 12/13, we got Gary West. And on 12/17, we've got George Warmaker. So let's sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gary. Happy birthday to you.
All right. Gary, it hardly gets any prettier than that now.
Oh, by the way, Rosa couldn't make it today because she had something vacation at lunch. I can't wait to see.
Not surprised. Andy McCall has a moment to speak to our projects committee.
I'll make it real brief. As you all know, we had the visioning, and then subsequent to that, we had a committee together to put some recommendations to you all for what you all want to see taken to the board eventually for the service projects for the club, and eventually those service projects will help spur on what we do in terms of what direction we go for fundraising. What I'm going to leave up here on the corner table is basically what we're going to talk about next week. I'm not going to go into the presentation now. I'm going to talk for a few minutes next time. You all are getting this primarily as being put on notice that this is what we're going to talk about. So come with questions. There will be a question period, discussion. If you see something on here that you don't like, that'll be the time to talk about it. If you see something on, or if you don't see something on here that you do like and you thought should have been on here, that'll be the time to talk about it then. So hopefully this will give you a little explanation as to where things are right now and what our preliminary recommendations are to the General Assembly. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate that. That's a great opportunity. Please get one of those on your way out. And then next week, we're going to talk to this at a club assembly. And it's a great way, we think, to involve each and every one of us to do the projects, the service we want to do in the community and worldwide. And then how do we want to pay for it? And how we want to raise money to pay for it. So it's a good opportunity to include everybody. Andy?
One last thing I was remiss, it will be attached to the newsletter as well, coming out in email form, so you can look at it there as well. Thanks.
Good deal. Thanks a lot. Andy and his committee, if we could give them a hand, they've really worked hard. Rosemar is on your committee as well. Bo, I think, is on your committee, is that correct?
Amanda Tackett.
Amanda Tackett.
Todd Wolf helped out a little bit. Roy, who else? Pretty much covered it.
Bo can't remember.
Bo can't remember. That's why I got a curbside seat next to Rebekah.
Thank y'all.
Thank you all. Thanks, Andy.
Helen Hart.
Now, where were we?
Oh, where were we?
Give my store-bought eyes out here. Got a little barbecue sauce on my jacket.
Yeah, right.
Well, I guess, are there any other announcements from the floor? Bo?
Real quick, I put on the table a dictionary project, which schools have been delivered to. So if you've delivered and it's not on here, just mark it X, and I'll come by and pick it up. But we're getting close. We're about 75% of the way done. So thank everybody for delivering the dictionaries.
Okay, I saw you had Corrington. Someone else beat me to the punch up there, so I'm not totally efficient. Pardon me?
We did for
Oh, did you? Well, thank you. They really appreciate those, by the way. Yeah. Good job.
No, I do very well.
Thank you, Jim. Save me a trip trying to find. Yeah, Charlie.
I'd like to add something to the dictionary projects. I did Lonsdale yesterday. If you did a school recently and you had any books left over, Jim Q needs them. And I called, I've got back, and I'm gonna pick up about 9 books back at Lonsdale, and I'll get them back. But Brad sent me, and he's not here today, I don't think, he sent me an email and said that, yes, we are short some, so if you've already delivered to a school recently, and you can get the extras back to Brad or Todd Wolf, they would appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, good point. I know Jim saw me. Michael, you've got.
We've got a couple boxes of extras in the back that the other people brought back, so we have some.
Okay, all right.
All right, good deal. Thank you, Charlie. Okay, well, for that, this month, the Rotary theme for this month is disease prevention and treatment. And certainly today's program, and Dr. Roy's was appropriate a couple weeks ago. And so today's Rotary four-way trivia contest question is sort of related to that. And I'd like to, if we would go back, and if we can remember back to 2009 time frame, our club participated in for the first time, along with the district, in Heart to Heart. And Ron Apoon often attributes this club for putting him over the top to where they could really make that happen, and certainly he's very appreciative of that. We gave a gift to the children in Mexico, and there's a couple things we donated to give a gift for. Now, name one of those two. Dr. Jim.
A dialysis machine.
No, good guess.
Water wells?
No, well, those things have been done, but that first year we did something in the medical treatment. Larry?
Cradle.
That's it, I can't say it either. It's a cranial
Cradle for.
craniotomy equipment. Craniotomy, you got the coin. And we also gave radiant cradles for preemies, but you know, prior to that, they were using Black & Decker drills. Nothing against Black & Decker, but they were using drills to perform craniotomy surgery. And certainly we got them some medical equipment for the proper thing. So that's some of the outreach Rotary does. And with that, that kind of concludes our meeting. So everyone, please, thank you for all coming and be a gift to the world. Who's got paving? Well, can we do our honorary member announce paving, the four-way test today? We'd be honored if you'd do that, Ann.
I did know.
You got a hold above your head.
Okay.
Ann's got paving. Four-way test.
Let's do the four-way test.
Things ways we say.
The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First.
Is it true?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build better friendships?
Fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?